Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. In the name of Allah, the Beneficent, the Most Merciful, I'd like to welcome you, dear viewers, to another in our series, In the Light of Islam. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. May Allah's peace and blessings be on each and every one of you. As you all know well, this program is for your benefit to answer your questions about Islam and anything which is related to Islam. You may contact us by phone or by fax or by email. By any means that you have available to you, we welcome your questions. At the end of the program, I'll give you some numbers that you may contact us through. I will be continuing on with a number of questions which have been raised by young students, senior students at the Oxford School. They've given me quite a large list of questions. We've been trying to answer them bit by bit, over the various programs. Of course, we have other emails, etc., that we'll be looking at, but I'll start off with one of their questions. Should men grow a beard? If yes, why and how long? Well, the growing of the beard is first and foremost compulsory. It is a requirement. And a lot of people tend to have this idea that it is Sunnah. This is how they refer to it. It's just Sunnah. Sunnah meaning that it was a recommended practice, or it was a practice of the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ. Well, the point is that this term Sunnah needs to be understood to really properly understand why it may be referred to as a Sunnah. Yet some people would still insist that it is fard, or obligatory, wajib, compulsory. Why would some insist on that when it's referred to at the same time as being Sunnah? Well, the term Sunnah has two meanings. There's one meaning which identifies the general methodology of the Prophet, his lifestyle and all the things connected to that. That's called Sunnah. And on another hand, Sunnah is also used to refer to specifically the acts which the Prophet ﷺ did, which are recommended for you to do. This is the term used to refer to such acts. Another term used is also mustahab or mandub. These are two other terms used, and perhaps these are better because they avoid this confusion that can come with a term being used in two different contexts. So from the point of view, when one says that it is Sunnah to wear the beard, it is not Sunnah from the legal point of view, which distinguishes it from that which is obligatory or that which is disliked or prohibited. That's not the correct usage of the term Sunnah with regards to the beard. The term Sunnah with regards to the beard falls under the category of the general practices of the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ. And of his general practices, there are some things which are obligatory. For example, it was his Sunnah to pray 2 units of prayer for Fajr. 2 units of prayer for the obligatory prayers of Fajr. This was his Sunnah. I mean, it's not mentioned in the Quran that for the morning prayer it consists of 2 units, 2 rak'at. It's not mentioned there. The Prophet Muhammad ﷺ did it. And he said, pray as you saw me pray. So he did it, and he instructed us to follow his way. So for the morning prayers, the obligatory morning prayers, it should be 2 units of prayer. So we can say it is from the Sunnah of the Prophet ﷺ to pray 2 units of prayer for the morning prayer, Salatul Fajr. But that Sunnah of the Prophet ﷺ is wajib, is obligatory. We could also say it is from the Sunnah of the Prophet not to eat birds of prey. and carnivorous animals. Wild carnivorous animals. This is forbidden. You will not find it in the Quran. It's not there, not mentioned. The Prophet, may God's peace and blessing be upon him, he said that you should not eat any bird which kills with the claw, or any animal which kills with the eye tooth. These are wild animals, carnivorous animals like the tiger, the lion, these type of, and the birds are like the eagle, the osprey, the hawk, the falcon, etc., etc. We're not allowed to eat them. So we can say it is from the Sunnah of the Prophet, may God's peace and blessing be upon him, not to eat birds of prey and carnivorous animals. But that Sunnah, what the Prophet ﷺ prohibited, that is haram. It is haram to eat these things. So we have Sunnah which may indicate what is haram, Sunnah which may indicate what is obligatory. We also have Sunnah which may indicate what is disliked, like the Prophet Muhammad said that we should not eat and drink standing. The Prophet, may God's peace and blessing be upon him, said, do not eat or drink standing. But he himself was seen eating and drinking standing, or particularly drinking standing. There's authentic narrations that he did so. So that practice of the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ, which is from his Sunnah, combined with his statement not to eat or drink standing, indicates to us that it is disliked to eat or drink standing. So here from his Sunnah we have something which is disliked, or what is known as makruh. And then we have from his Sunnah also, he said that whoever does additional units of prayer with their daily prayers, 2 before Fajr, 2 before Dhuhr, 2 after Dhuhr, 2 after Isha, or 4 after Dhuhr, or 4 before Dhuhr. Whoever does these on a regular basis, Allah will make a home for him in paradise. This is something recommended. Here is from the Sunnah of the Prophet ﷺ, something which is recommended, highly recommended. We also have from the Sunnah of the Prophet ﷺ that when a desert lizard, which is called in Arabic a dab, was brought to him to eat, because Arabs of Arabia did eat this desert lizard, he didn't eat it. When he was asked by one of his companions, is it haram? He said, no, it was just not in the area where I grew up, and I don't like it. So it was his personal dislike. He here indicates by that personal dislike, which is from his Sunnah, that the eating of the dab, the desert lizard, is neutral, or what they call mubah. You may do it, or you may not. So from the Sunnah of the Prophet ﷺ, we have all 5 categories derived. Now the question is, how do we know whether growing the beard is from the obligatory Sunnah, or is it from the recommended Sunnah? How do we know that? Or is it merely from the permissible Sunnah, the mubah? You do it or don't do it, doesn't matter. How do we know? Well, we have to look at the principles which the scholars used to determine how things are classified as obligatory, how are they classified as recommended, how are they classified as permissible in general. Because we should be conscious that this classification is not done by what they call an eeny, meeny, miny, mo method. Meaning that we get, for example, a bottle, and we put some balls inside or whatever, one written on it, compulsory, another written, recommended, another written, permitted, another written, disliked, another written, forbidden. That we put it in a bowl, and whenever we have a problem to deal with, is wearing such and such, or doing this, or saying this, or whatever, how do we classify these things? That the scholar sticks his hand in the bowl, and whatever ball he comes out with, he says, okay, it says forbidden, so we say that one is forbidden. Puts his hand in, pulls out another ball, it says, okay, permitted, no problem. Says, okay, that one's no, this is not the method. This is not the way in which they determine it. It's not arbitrary. It's based on principles. Once we understand these principles, then we can now apply this to all of the various areas. And this is part of the science known as usul al-fiqh, or the fundamental principles or methodological principles of law. How do we determine when something is obligatory? We know it is obligatory when a direct command has come from the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ to do this thing. He said, do it. Now, some people say, well, a command to do something doesn't always mean you must do it. Because one may command somebody to do it and we are in fact recommending. And we may command somebody to do something and in fact we're pleading. What does this mean? For example, if we tell Allah, tell God, give me success, O God. Is it obligatory on God to give us success? No, we are pleading for success. If we say to somebody at work with us, who is a workmate or something like this, we say to them, do a good job with this. We're recommending them. Are we commanding them? No, we're on the same level as they are. We're, equal workmates. We're not the boss or anything like this, so we tell them, do a good job, okay? We're recommending. We're asking them to do a good job, recommending that they do a good job. Or if the boss tells the secretary, write this letter, it means she has to write this letter, or he has to write this letter. So they go ahead and they do it. So whether a command represents a plea, a recommendation, or an obligation will depend on who is talking to who. As a general principle, if a person of lower status is addressing a person of higher status, people are addressing an authority, their command is a plea. They're begging. They're asking, please do this. If people are of similar status and a command is given, then it means it's recommended. Or it could be a plea too. And when the higher authority is instructing the lower, then it means obligation. That is a basic principle in language. We assume that a higher authority instructing lower people of a lower status, that means it is obligatory. So if God is the higher authority, Prophet Muhammad ﷺ, he's the higher authority, they instruct us to do something, we must assume that that instruction means obligation. Why? Because, as I said, even in our own dealings with language and the world, that's what we assume. If we didn't assume this, then we will have a state of confusion where the boss tells the secretary, do this, and the secretary stops to think, well, does the boss mean I must do this? Or is he just recommending that I do it? Or it's a, if I do it, don't do it, no problem, you know. If the secretary or if those working for the manager, the boss, don't take commands to mean you must do it unless stated otherwise, then you have confusion. Systems cannot function. The world would fall apart. So according to language, we generally understand an instruction to mean obligation when it is given by a higher authority. But if that higher authority adds some other condition, some other qualifying statement, then this may shift that command to recommendation. Because if the boss says, do this letter, write this letter next week, means you don't have to do it now. I mean, you could, if you want to do it now, that's good, but it's not obligatory for you to do it right now. Something you could do later. Or if he says, write this letter if you receive an instruction from that company or the other, and so on and so on. So it means it's not on you to do it unless you receive it. So if you don't receive that, then you don't have to do it at all. So these are qualifying statements and circumstances which now can modify a command to a lesser status of a recommendation or something to do possibly or possibly not. Now when we come back now to the issue of growing the beard, and we look in Sahih al-Bukhari, the most authentic book after the Quran, we find there Prophet Muhammad ﷺ in an authentic hadith or statement saying, grow your beards and trim your mustaches. Grow your beards and trim your mustaches. Distinguish yourself from the pagans in some of the narrations. So he gives a direct command, grow your beards and trim your mustaches. So from that, because of the fact that there were no other circumstances to change that instruction from being obligation, then the correct understanding is that this is an obligation on all men. Of course, women, if you're growing a beard, Islam does permit you to remove it. I mean, that to that degree, because that's not a norm for a woman, right? Some women grow hairs, and if some may be heavier, some less. You know, if it's just a few little hairs here and there, of course, one doesn't necessarily have to worry about it. You can just, you know, use some form of coloring or whatever, which can just make it blend, and, you know, so you don't want to be plucking, picking, and all these kind of things on your face anyway. But if it starts to grow in heavy and it's disfiguring, making you look like a man, then most scholars hold that it is permissible for you to remove that hair. But for men, because this is supposed to be a symbol of their manhood, this is one of the distinguishing features between men and women, they're supposed to grow that beard. An obligation. If one does not grow the beard, one is in sin. Every time the person takes the razor to their face and removes the hair from their face, they are committing a sin. And this is something which scholars of the past held in such importance or esteem that in the courts, during the period of the Ottomans, etc., in the courts, the judge would not accept the witness of one who shaved his beard, because they felt that if a person would be so bold as to openly disobey the Prophet, because of course it's something open. I mean, of course, everybody maybe disobeys the Prophet in different ways in their lives, etc. They commit sins, etc. But sins are usually hidden. We hide it from others. But where a person is so bold as to just up in everybody's face, I am disobeying the Prophet, they say, well, can we trust such a person to give a true and honest witness? No. So they wouldn't accept his witness in the court. So the growing of the beard is obligatory. Even when the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ met with two emissaries who were sent to him from the Christians, they came to him and they had these big handlebar mustaches and their beards were shaven. He turned away and didn't want to look at them. And they asked, why? What's wrong? And he asked, who told you to do this? He said, well, our Lord, our commander, he instructed us to do this. He said, well, my Lord instructed that the beards are grown and the mustaches trimmed. This is even dealing with people from other cultures. So we understand that the growing of the beard is an obligation on a Muslim man. In terms of how long should it grow, because of course the beard may grow down to your ankles, drag on the ground. Should you just grow it and don't cut it? Well, we then look to the companions of the Prophet ﷺ, what they understood, and it was their practice to trim their beard. Whatever was beyond the length of a fist, they would trim the beard. They let it grow. The maximum length was to that of a fist, or the shortest. They would shorten it to the length of a fist. What is beyond that, they would trim. That was the Sunnah of the companions of the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ. So, from that, I hope, inshallah, it is clear to you, dear viewers, that it is obligatory on men to grow their beards. They may trim it if it is beyond the length of a fist, and shaving of the beards is a sin. With that, dear viewers, I'd like to thank you for being with us in this segment of our program, In the Light of Islam. As I mentioned in the beginning, you can contact us at the numbers which I'll mention here now. We have 06 if you're calling inside the country, or 9716 calling from outside the country, and the fax number is 5323724. Or you may write to me at my website, bilalphilips.com. Or you may write to us at the station here, In the Light of Islam, Bilal Philips, P.O. Box 111, Sharjah, UAE. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.